Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Ojibwe, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Carrie Linklater. I am your chairperson this morning. And I am joined via Zoom by panel members, Mr. Kent Seelan and Ms. Diane Knight. From the assessment department is Mr. Kem Wong, and our administrative personnel is Mr. Tristan Breeden. We will be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the board. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by City Council and is independent of it and the city administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxations. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the board's decision by registered mail as soon as possible. And as information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. This morning, we will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket. And Mr. Breeden, please affirm the assessor and the applicant's testimony.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Kem Wong.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Rocky Neufeld.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Wong and Mr. Neufeld. We have
Morning.
a rather full agenda this morning, so I'm going to ask you both if we could move things along and keep our comments to the point. Thank you. First item on our docket is 835 Sterling Lion. And Mr. Wong, I believe before we begin, you have a recommendation on this property.
Yes. Did you want me to go through my brief first, or did you want me to just go to the file information and the recommendation?
You can start with the file recommendation, with the file number and recommendation.
Sure. The file number, the subject property is 835 Sterling Lion. The file number is 24-3850, and the roll number is 100-067-75955. And I'm recommending that the value be revised from 40,825,000 to 39,156,000 based off of a revised NOI that's on my page 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9. 9.
All right, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, are you accepting this recommendation?
I'm just looking at it right now. Page 9. Sorry, what are the details of this change?
It's just based off of the revised NOI of 1,801,000 on page 9.
1801, okay. And you're keeping the same capitalization rate then?
Yes.
Sorry, I'm just looking at the your evidence. Just give me a second.
Sure.
No, we're not. Thank you.
Oh, you're not accepting this, Mr. Neufeld?
That's correct.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wong, if you would like to proceed with your brief, please.
Yes. So the subject property is 835 Sterling Lion. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is 40,825,000. This is a residential apartment block that's 6 stories high. It was built in 2019 and has 133 suites with 136 outdoor parking stalls with 136 indoor parking stalls and 45 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is an exterior picture of the subject property with its location. It's just located in the area close to IKEA off of Caniston. I go to page 4. Page 4 and 5 are some interior pictures of the subject property. With a description. So the short description on the top, this reads that the 6-story tower is the crown of the Tuxedo Point community and offers the carefree allure and convenience of apartment living at its most luxurious. The LTX features a stunning, spacious 1, 2, and 3-bedroom designer suites with breathtaking prairie views from the floor to ceiling windows. So basically, the subject property is on the very luxury end of the apartment spectrum, and yeah, in my experience, it is at the higher end of the spectrum for apartment buildings. On page 6 are some of the amenities. On page 7 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $133 we use average rents of $1,916 to get a potential income of $3,059,000. We used a 3.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $2,955,000, and we used a 36% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $1,877,000. capped at 4.6%. We have an estimated market value of 40,825,000, which works out to about 306,000 a unit and $281 a square foot. On page 8 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 9 is my revised value calculation. When you look at the net operating income from 2021 and 2022, they're a bit lower than what the model is indicating. The model is indicating about 1,877,000, and their actual NOI has been a little bit lower than that. So averaging their NOI from 2021 to 2022, their average NOI is 1,801,000. Once again, a little bit less than the 1,877,000 that the model has estimated. So applying a cap rate of 4.6%, the estimated value is 39,156,000, which is about 294,000 a unit and about $270 a square foot. On page 10 are some sale comparables. They might range from 265,000 a unit to 281,000 a unit, and $266 a square foot to $321 a square foot. These sales, they support the revised value at $294,000 a unit and $270 a square foot. Especially considering that the subject property is superior to the properties that are the sales comparables that are on my page 10. On page 11 is information on how we derived our cap rates, and on page 12 are some cap rate sales. The most relevant cap rate sale would be 2390 McPhillips, which capped at 4.71%, and I believe that's in line with what the models applied at 4.6%. The remainder of my brief is the income statements supplied by the owner for 2022 and 2021. So to conclude, the revised NOI and the revised NOI is supported by is in line with their actual NOI, and the model cap rate is supported by market sales, and the revised overall value is supported by comparable sales. So I ask you accept the revised value of 39,156,000.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. So the tenancy mix is listed on your page. Sorry, I was glancing through. I'm going to be very slow for a while this morning here. I was just dealing with some other issues. Page 8, is that correct?
I don't know what you're referring to.
Tenancy mix, 99 one
Like
bedroom
the suite
units?
mix?
Yes.
Yeah, page 7.
Okay. So this is predominantly one bedroom units?
There's 99 one bedrooms, 24 two bedrooms, and 10 three bedrooms.
Predominantly one bedroom?
The majority, it appears, yes, about 70%, I guess.
And you have this, are you relying on this information on page 10?
I think page 10 is a good indication of value,
Okay.
which is what we're after here.
And how does it compare to say, comparable number 3, which was just 2-bedroom units?
I
Would
would
a
say,
2-bedroom not sell for more than a 1-bedroom?
typically they would.
Okay.
That's why, like, when you look at you look at the sale price per square foot, the revised value at $270 is at the low end of the range uh, for comparable sales. So sometimes it's very difficult to get exact sales comparables or exact like comparable rent comparables, but we do the best we can, and I believe that these are sales of newer buildings, which do represent what what normal new buildings might sell for, and uh, in this particular case, the subject property is, I would say, it's fairly superior to some of those comparables.
Then why don't you have the cap rates on these sites?
I haven't presented that today.
Okay.
I'm not sure if we were able to work it up, but I think what we're after here is market value, and I believe these are a good indication of market value.
Is it your opinion or your statement that people transact apartments in our marketplace based on a rate per square foot or a rate per unit?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the case or not, but this is an indication of what they actually sell for. How they get to that final sale price, I'm not sure if I'm privileged to that information.
Well, if they had a cap rate of 6% on these sales, wouldn't that be a better reason than a rate per unit?
Well, like I said, how they got to the final sale price, I'm not really too sure, but I believe these are good representations of market value. And in the end, that's what the assessment department is trying to estimate the value of, is fair market value.
Again, I just asked for a clear answer. Would not the rate of return on the income be the primary consideration for any transaction of multifamily?
I said I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure. There could be a multitude of ways that somebody might look at this, but like I said, we're after fair market value, and these comparables seems to indicate what newer apartment buildings transact for on the marketplace.
So that's a no. Cap rate isn't important.
I'm not saying that at all.
Well, what is the most important thing for a sale?
What it actually transacts for, and
What's the indicator? You have 3 ones indicated here. We've got discussion on cap rates elsewhere. We have a rate per unit on this page, 7 or 8, whatever, 6, and we have a rate per square foot. What does the market use?
Well, the thing is, there is no one answer. I mean, some people might use a higher NOI with a higher cap rate, but some people might use a lower NOI with a lower cap rate. In valuation, they would both be right. But like when you're looking at
That
the
wasn't
value
the
of
question. That wasn't the question. I wasn't comparing the cap rate and the NOI. I said, is it income? Is it rate per square foot, or is it rate per unit?
you're asking me for one definitive answer as to what value is based off of,
I've
and
asked your opinion.
there is no one answer.
Okay, thank you. On your page 11, you have been made aware that there was an error in the Collier's cap rates. You're still using the wrong number. Has the assessment department not made their corrections yet?
If you're indicating that the error is still there, then it's likely that it hasn't been corrected.
Okay.
What is the correction?
Well, you'll see it in the evidence. The rate applied to this site was 4.6%, and this is below your 80th percentile and below any market indicator listed on page 11. How can that happen?
Because there's a lower 20th percentile and there's a higher 20th percentile, 80th percentile.
Okay, how about the marketplace where we have people say we don't sell anything that low? How do you reconcile that?
Well, The thing is that I'm not sure what those people say, but basically the cap rates that are indicated, on my page 12, we've calculated them using 3 years of income and expenses prior to the year of the sale. And so that's how we calculated these cap rates. When we apply these cap rates to try to estimate market value, they appear to be very accurate in terms of estimating market value. And I think the whole point of what we're doing here is we're trying to estimate fair market value. And so the cap rates that we've calculated, they do result in accurate estimates of market value. So with regards to maybe what other people might indicate, I can't speak to it.
I understand that. Now, these people who actually sell properties, would you agree that they do speak to the purchaser and vendor on their particular motivations?
You know, I think they might do that, but I think they would also speak to what they actually sell the property for, and what they actually sell for the property for is indicated on some transactions, such as on page 10.
So you're saying that there are a lot of agents to sell apartment blocks without speaking to the vendor or the purchaser?
I'm not saying that. I don't know.
Okay. How about the city? Have you spoken to any of the vendors and purchases in your analysis of any of the properties that you have presented today?
I don't believe we have. What I do believe is that with the cap rates and estimates of income and expense information that our model has estimated, it does appear to be reasonably. It does appear to be, I would say, very accurate in terms of estimating fair market value, as indicated, say, on page 10 of my brief, where the estimated value is very much in line and maybe on the low side compared to some of the sales that are on page 10.
The burden of proof in our province is based on the assessor. Now, you are presenting evidence from market, and you're saying that your analysis, without speaking to participants in a sale, is more accurate than the people who sell properties. Is that what you're saying?
Not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that the estimated market value, at 294,000 of I would say a superior property, is supported by the sales that are on page 10. That's what I'm saying.
The page 12, these particular sales, and I'll just ask in general for all of them, were these do you know the interest rates at time of sale?
No, like these cap rates were calculated based off of stabilizing the 3 years NOI prior to the year of the sale and applying it against the sale price. That is how it was calculated.
You have no idea if these had CMHC financing at 1.75% or traditional financing at 5% then?
I believe I've answered the question.
I know you told me you told me the story of how they do it. I'm asking you a direct question on the difference between two rates. Just a yes or no. Do you know if it was 1.75 or 5?
I do not know the details.
That's fine. And were any of these adjusted for the Manitoba education tax credit?
I'm not sure.
In the workups that you were provided, did anybody go through them and ensure that the CMHC application fee wasn't listed as an expense?
I am not sure.
Are you familiar with the CMHC mortgage process?
No.
Okay. On the statements provided, first of all, I'm looking page 14. That's 2022.
Yes.
Okay, and then you mentioned the 21. That is, I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down. This is quite a long statement. Page 22. This is the 2021 statement.
Yes.
And I noticed that there's you mentioned it as well, there's a decline in income from 2021 to 2022. Did you investigate the reason behind this?
No.
Okay, so what I see here is from 3,190,000 gross income down to 3,216,000. Is this what you would typically expect to see in multifamily?
Typically, no.
Okay. And I guess there were probably changes in the expense as well. Sorry, I'm just trying to find their number for NOI. Oh, great. I got the mortgage payments mixed in here. Did you have this summarized on your page? No, you don't have it summarized on your page 9. But was the change completely, it wasn't completely due to lower income, it was also a difference in the expenses as well. Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure.
Well, the difference in income was $26,000, but here the difference on the years and the performance is $130,000. Fair to say that there was an expense differential in the future years?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, we can go through it then in detail if you don't know that in a summary basis. I'm just trying to make this shorter. I'm looking at operating costs then on.
Sorry, which page are you on?
I'm moving ahead to page 20. So on page 20, we have this is line item 68999, total operating expenses 1,216,000. Do you have the corresponding number for the 21? I guess the statements are different, aren't they? Different styles?
Maybe.
Because this will just take me that they're saying 2809, and I have to go back up to subtract the mortgage and add in principal. I'm getting expenses of approximately 1,070,000 in 21 versus 1,234,000 in 22. Do those sound about right based on your review of it?
I do not know.
Okay.
I don't have those numbers in a spreadsheet in front of me.
Well, I'm leading to the question. The question is, as expenses have risen, income has dropped. But isn't it natural that expenses would have to stabilize in new construction, that they're going to be very low on the first few years, and they rise to market levels as the building ages?
Potentially. Like, I'm not sure if you could parse out every detail and try to explain every detail of these. And you would look at this from a long-term basis. And so I'm not sure how relevant that each line item would be.
I exactly, and I'm not asking for an individual line item. I'm simply saying as a general observation on new construction that there is what we would call a expense holiday on the first few years, and the expenses will rise as the building ages. Is that not a fairly standard understanding from your side?
That may be the case, but like when you look at how it would stably operate over a long period of time, you're not gonna increase the expenses by greatly over an extended period of time in your stabilized expenses. So I'm not sure how relevant this is.
You mean you're not going to stabilize a low expense year by bringing it up?
Like the expenses are, I mean, if you're calculating them to be a little bit higher in 2022 versus 2021, it would appear to be the case.
And what is your the assessment department's understanding of rental rates, rental income changes over the years? Are you still in a position saying that it's steadily increasing?
Rent?
Yes,
In
rental
my,
income.
the department doesn't have any sort of a stance, I don't think. But in terms of rents, they keep going up.
Yeah,
I
okay.
I don't know how it happens, but it seems like they keep going up.
Okay, that's all I was wondering about. And sorry, I'm just about done. It's a little long document to navigate. Okay, those are my questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions to the assessor?
No, sir. Or no, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan?
Yes, can you tell me what the influence are to this property?
The influences?
Yeah,
Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head, and we don't have that information in here. But there is I guess a railroad track beside it, and it is in a area with a lot of residential, and there's a decent amount of commercial. But that's just from my personal experience. It's not necessarily based off of anything in our system. I'm just a little bit familiar with the location because I've been to IKEA once or twice.
sure. It says there's a school nearby. Do you know where that school is?
I do not.
That's fair. 9 foot ceilings, is that, I'll say, a typical height for new builds? Or is that a typical height for, I'll say, industry standard?
Like 9-foot ceilings.
Yes.
I actually am not sure what might be a standard or not for ceiling height. Unfortunately, I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Let's take a quick look at your comps. Where are the locations of these comps? I see one is South Point, but I see you have Urban Square. This is page 10, and I see you have UC 30. I'm curious where these locations are.
The Lumen South is in the south part of the city. Urban Square is in the downtown area between Broadway and Portage Avenue, and UC 30 is by the University of Winnipeg, by the corner. I'm not sure of the street, might be University Crescent, but there's a Petro-Canada there. It's basically near Abinogi, Mikina, and Pembina.
Oh, I see U of M.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Can you just take us through your CAP study and just talk a little bit about the CAP study and your CAP rate? I'm just looking for the page. I apologize. I'll pull it up.
12.
12?
12, yeah.
Okay, so if you can just take us through, perhaps you can take us through first page 11 and tell me, is this a high rise, low rise? Is this A or B?
Like we don't our cap rates don't seem to, they don't distinguish between high rise or A or B. Like most of the stock that we look at is just mostly regular stock, and So yeah, we don't distinguish, but on page 12, those are the cap rates that we calculated. And once again, we look at the 3 years income and expenses prior to the sale, and we stabilize that income and we apply that income against the sale price, and those are the resulting cap rates. Those are the resulting cap rates that we have.
I think you mentioned something about 2390 McMillips.
Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah.
best comparable with respect to cap?
Yeah, with respect to cap rate, I would say so. We've calculated 4.71, and we have the subject property at 4.6. I think that's very fair and reasonable. The subject property is, I would believe, on the higher end of the spectrum in terms of how nice the apartment is, and whereas 2390 McPhillips, which 2390 McPhillips, which sold in 2000, that's probably a very more standard, just a normal new apartment building, whereas the subject property is definitely on the higher end of the range in terms of how nice or luxurious it is.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
So Mr. Wong, I believe you indicated that your brief was model driven, correct?
Yes.
Along with your cap rate,
Yes.
okay? And you are giving your opinion that this is a luxurious apartment building, correct? I think you've stated that twice.
Yeah. I mean, that would be in my experience, this would be on the higher end of the range in terms of there are quote unquote more standard apartments, maybe quote unquote cookie cutter. I don't believe that this is that. And so this is in my opinion on the higher end of the spectrum, and especially like when you look at the property itself, when you look at the balconies that might be shown on page 3.
All right, but you didn't inspect the property.
No, I have not.
Okay. Do you know when it was inspected?
I do not know. I'm assuming it would have been inspected somewhat soon after completion.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. If you'd like to proceed with your brief.
I did have another question to ask. I think it's a redirect or possibly, but it'll just save me asking it later if it's not, if that's okay, or I can
Yeah.
hold on to it till later.
No, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Wong, I've heard many people say, and I don't recall if assessors say this, and I don't know if you've ever said it, is that the lower the value, the lower the cap rate because it's more affordable to investors. Have you heard this statement from other assessors or yourself?
Maybe, yes.
Okay, so at $40 million, is this affordable to a lot of different investors?
I would say it's rather unaffordable, but
Okay.
like I say, typically speaking, when you look at the estimate of value, it does seem to be in line with what they actually sell for. So I feel it's fairly
I know.
reasonable.
I just meant about affordability and competition for a lower cap rate.
Oh,
That concept.
well, no, not. I mean, maybe not that concept, but I think maybe what you might be referring to maybe smaller apartments having slightly lower cap rates, which is what I've seen, and which kind of I don't know why that's the case, but that appears to be the case based off of the sales that we have. And so, but when you think about it, it's like maybe me and my friend can go and get and go try to buy a $500,000 apartment unit, or apartment building, or maybe $1 million apartment building between me and a
Right.
few friends. And so that might sort of drive the cap rates down a little bit, but that's just me guessing.
Yeah, no, and I understand the statement. Not that I agree with it, but based on that statement, then wouldn't you expect the subject then to have a higher cap rate because that's the other side of that maxim?
Potentially, you like I said, within the income approach, you can look at things, probably 5 different ways and still be right. But like in the end, does your view result in an accurate estimate of market value? And in this particular case, I believe it is a relatively accurate estimate of market value.
I think your answer is a bit unresponsive, but I think I made my point. Thank you. That's all I wanted to ask.
Thank you. If you'd like to proceed.
Yes, I don't, I'm looking at this report and and first I have to say that I don't prepare these. We have somebody new doing them this year, and so brace yourself for changes. I don't see the actual statement. However, the assessor was kind enough to put it in for 2022. And the points I was making during my questions of him were very, very simple. New building, there is we call it an expense holiday. You don't have many expenses the first year. And the other thing that happens on a new building is you never get caught up with the property taxes because the city usually waits 2 years before, I'm just closing my door, sorry, usually waits 2 years before they go out and reassess. And so people estimate what the taxes are and they don't represent the actual. You'll notice in this case that the taxes were quoted at 301,000. That's not the case. They were actually 350,000. I just checked. So I think that the assessor's income of 1,734,000 for this year is an accurate reflection. What that represents, like I said, first year expenses are lower because you don't have to fix anything. And where this happens on the expense side, and it's also an indication of the rental rates, is there's always on the first 5 years, maybe 10 years on a new build, there's inducements to get people to come in and rent, and you give them 1 month free rent. It's a practice that was in place 20, 30 years ago and is back now because there are more units on the market. So people come in, they take their 1 year rental, and then they move to the next apartment block that offers an inducement. Why not? It saves them a couple $1,000 a year for the cost of moving items, and most apartment builders don't have high moving costs. This is just a reality of it. So stabilization takes a few years. Usually we look at about 5 years, and that's likely one of the factors impacting the decline in income and the raise in expenses, because when you turn over a unit, you have to refresh the unit and you have to spend money again, and that's what comes on later. The other market issue is that there was a general increase in vacancy rates beginning near the beginning of the COVID era in 2020, and for some blocks this was mitigated by refugees. So on the lesser expensive blocks, the rents, we had Ukrainian and Syrian refugees that the Red Cross put up, and it helped stabilize the income. But in general, the incomes have declined.
Sorry, where is this in your brief in terms of the incomes declining, or?
Well, are you objecting to my providing verbal evidence?
Are you providing verbal evidence?
I'm providing a verbal outlook on the market.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was trying to reference it in your
okay.
in your brief, and so trying to keep up. And
oh yeah, well now you made me forget where I am. I had it memorized.
okay, no, I mean I'm just trying to keep up.
Okay, so essentially, we have seen a decline in revenue on most blocks, and it's going to be based on your status in there. And we are at the higher end of the scale for red, so you're going to see it a little more pronounced on units like this. Now, this particular unit is in the old um, uh, uh, um, container yard operated by CN. So this whole area was a container transfer yard, and then it was sold and redeveloped. The eastern part of it went retail, and the western part went multifamily. This is the most extreme western unit. It's on the pointy edge. The railway track, which is still active, is 165 feet from the building layout, which is below the recommendation that is put forward by both rail carriers and the municipalities of Canada, who are looking for a 200-foot setback from rail. And that is not in the city's planning department. That is not something that they're enforcing. But this is the recommendation, and it all came about after the Lac Mégantic, the disaster there. However, when in comparison, though, the point I'm making here, though, is when you look at the rest of the development, and we'll come to some of the other properties today, they are set back more because they're not on the pointy edge. In order to get yield, they push it closer to the railway tracks, and it's a bit of a detriment. So the income, the 1734 that the assessor has brought forward is a good number to use. However, we would subtract the shortfall on the taxes, which had not been caught up to at the time of that statement. So the NOI is actually 1685676, which is higher than what we've indicated on this and I'm not, I don't even know where this came from, honestly. I don't get it. So
excuse me, Mr. Neufeld, so you want us to use this new number as your NOI?
Yes, please, 1685676, based on the statements from 2022, plus an adjustment for actual taxes. But we're not changing the cap rate at 5.5. And so that comes to a value of 30,648,655, 30,648,655 rounded to 30,650, 30,650,000, representing actual income at a 5.5% cap. And on the basis of the cap, there is a bit of a workup here on how the cap rate was developed. Not many changes, but I'll now take you way down to page page 37. We discovered a few months ago that the quarter 1 2023 Collier's cap rate report was produced in error in Winnipeg. Actually, what happened was that the report was never submitted from our office, so the people who print this off in Toronto just left last year's number for quarter 1 2022. The quarter 4 2022 is more accurate, and that's what this letter indicates. So there we have the apartment cap rates 5.5 to 6.5%. That is our actual analysis. And to back it up on page 38, the major reason why are the interest rates. And you'll note that our reference date, this is the Bank of Canada rate, by the way, not the interest rate. So the Bank of Canada rate at 4.75%. Interest rates are completely firmly fixed to cap rates because that's what it's all about, money. The information we have here. Now, we do have a couple of sales, and these are inferior to the subject property. Starting on page 41 on Edison. Note that the deal fell. There was a deal in 2022. It fell through. Eventually, it resold in 2024 at the same number. They used the 2022 income statement for determining the cap rate, and the sale price was the same offered in 2022 at 5.89%. Now, when we do these, we adjust for financing. This particular property had a CMHC assumable mortgage at 1.75%. At time of sale, the interest rates through CMHC were about 4.8, 4.9%, I believe, which indicates that there is a great financial benefit to assume a mortgage. And yes, we do always have to adjust for mortgages financing in a cap rate analysis. It's just that we haven't had to for 20 years because they've been more stable. So the way we do that is we look at the savings on the rest of the loan period basis. So if in this particular case, if we had a $7 million value and you're mortgaged at 70%, 4.9 million, and the difference in the interest rate is about 3%, that works out to savings of 147,000 a year on your bottom line. And what we do with that is we then multiply that times 3 for the remaining years, and then we divide it by the length of the capitalization rate of return, which is 20 years, coming to a $22,000 adjustment to the NOI upwards for a preferential financing. And then what that does is then it indicates what the owner's eyes really were, looking at the financial part of the structure as well. And that's, so in this particular case, that's going to represent about a 0.3% cap rate increase. So if the sale were at 5.6, it would indicate 5.9 was really in the eyes of the purchaser. The other issue is the school tax rebate, which is changing. And when the sales first came out, the school tax rebate was something that was mailed to the owner separately. This is the provincial school tax rebate, and it equaled about, I'm just trying to recall, about 35% of the school taxes on any given property. So again, this was, in the case of a property like this, then that would have been about another $16,000 that they got per year. And you have to add, all the statements in these cases didn't include that because it was mailed to them, and it went directly to the owner, so they can go to the operating statements. Now in 2023, what happened is the policy changed, and they were direct adjustments to the tax bill. But that was the tax bill that was sent out post-preference in May of 2023. So knowing all this, this is what our brokers do, is we take these things into account, real-time adjustments. And we do stabilize these on a 5-year basis for the important issues like the rental income and the expenses. Speaking of expenses, every property that's ever sold has a high R&M, repair and maintenance, amount on the year preceding sale. And the reason is people fix them up for sale. That is not considered part of a transaction, so that always has to be stabilized. And the last issue that we have to look at stabilizing is the CMHC fee, and to find out where it is on the statements. Was it taken into consideration? It costs money to get a CMHC mortgage, and I'm letting you in on some of the secrets. These aren't secrets, but some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes in most sales. If you purchase, if you're putting your building up for sale and you have a CMHC mortgage, say let's look at comparable number one, the CMHC fee would probably be about $30,000 to get a low interest rate mortgage. You pay it up front, you expense it, And then when your building hits the market with this, but it's an asset that's considered on the sale purchase. So to stabilize it, what you have to do is you have to take that out of expenses, make sure it's not in the expenses. Now, as a cost, it's generally not, but you have to be on the lookout for it. And I was asking the assessor if the city does it. Are you looking for a CMHC fee? We've seen cases where the fee has been $200,000, and in the case of the subject at a high value or a mortgage amount, of course, it's going to be extremely high. But this is just the process I'm telling you about. So at the end of the day, 441 Edison on a market basis was 5.89%. 160 Lumsden, which was a real sale that happened in the reference period, 6.04%. These were both handled by Colliers and both purchased by one of my clients. So it's firsthand information. We have a couple more, and these are all older units. Absolutely wouldn't want to represent them any other way. 100 Maryland was 5.62%. This is a newer unit, but we have no idea if adjustments were made for financing or the school tax credit. Same with River at 5.5, and then Notre Dame 5.49, and Henderson, which was a newer unit, at 5%. We know that these were not adjusted for that, so they would actually represent higher in the market. The idea is we just want to be transparent with the concept of a capitalization rate. And all of this information comes from our company, which sell and buy properties. We interview vendors, we work for vendors, we work for purchasers, we are knowledgeable. There is no such thing as just taking a form and trying to make sense of it. Often as an appraiser, that's all I would get. So that's why we went to Source, which are the people who sell properties. The bottom line truth to all of this is that our cap rate number of range of 5.5% to 6.5% for the period April 1st, 2023 was an accurate reflection of what the market was indicating. Interest rates were on the rise. Now, what happens in real life is when somebody bought on April 1st, 2023, their conventional mortgage would be probably around 5%. Now, that would indicate a cap rate, expected cap rate of about 7.5%, the way the math works. But that's a short-term belief, because most people believe the rates would stabilize and drop. And they looked at this high rate on a long-term basis, not just for a 3 or 5 year term, but for 20 years. So in year 5, they anticipated that the rates would drop, and a lot of them keep their mortgages flexible and ride it down, and that's exactly what happened. The rates dropped. The hard and fast number in our business used by all of our professionals is that the lowest possible rate would have been 5.6%. That's what you're doing is you're stabilizing the potential at 7.5%, and then looking at the 5% and saying, this is what's happened to the market. The best property was about 0.6 of a point higher on April 1st, 2023. And this is from people who sell properties. And this is what the market relies on. So we've rounded that to 5.5%. And that's how we came up with our number of 30,650,000. I apologize, a lot of this was verbal. I just want to get it right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Neufeld. Mr. Wong, any questions?
Yeah, just on your page 42, I guess, would you say 474 Henderson would be the most comparable to the subject property?
No, it's a small unit, and we don't have the calculations for the adjustments for financing and school tax credit. I have no idea if it was CMHC at the time, and whether or not anyone did the workup. This came from a different source. I would suspect it it needed adjustment for those factors, and it would probably end up in the mid fives.
Well, in terms of comparability to the subject, out of the cap rate sales that you have, would that one be the most comparable?
Yeah, it's a newer build. It's smaller units, and I don't know if I agree with your theory, your colleague's theory that more that a small unit would compete at higher rates. But yes, I think quality wise it would be.
Yeah, just in terms of age and it's probably the largest building, the
Well,
largest new building that you have.
yeah, there's 100 Maryland, which was an infill site. Um, and again, we don't have the adjustments at 5.62%.
Okay, so but at 475 Henderson is probably the most comparable out of the year cap rate sales.
Well, the two I mentioned
Yeah.
physically, obviously the most comparable, although smaller.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and so basically, it appears that 474 Henderson sold at about 281,000 per unit, and you're indicating 230,000 a unit in terms of your 30,650,000. Is that what you're asking for?
I haven't done the math. I'll take your word for it. To be clear on your answer, apartments don't sell on a cost per unit. That is not a measure. It's how much money it makes. 100%.
Okay, that's all my questions.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan?
Yes, could you clarify or reconfirm your NOI?
Okay, NOI 1,685,676.
So 1,685,676.
Yes.
Perfect. Would you say 9-foot ceiling heights is pretty typical with I'll say these new builds?
Yeah, I think the ceiling height um, median in Winnipeg is 9 feet for just about all residential these days, whether multifamily or single family. Rarely see anything lower.
What would you say are the influences to this property?
Well, you know, the primary location is pretty good, but on a specific basis, it's inferior in its local position, being close to the tracks. But it's a fairly strong area, and I myself was quite surprised when all of these ones you're going to hear about in Sterling Lion actually filled up as quickly as they did. The developers and owners the same for all the ones you're going to hear today, and they had them in stages, and they were prepared for a kind of a long-term development. And what they had, the targets would be, hit 85-90% occupancy, and then start building the next one. So it moved a bit quicker than I would have guessed, but it didn't peak where they had hoped. But I think it's being close to amenities is now something that's really important. You don't want your apartment tucked away on a side street where what you're fighting with is the car there, the car world of the car. You want to be where you don't need a car to do your everyday shopping. So that was, I think, one of the strong selling points here, and also the idea is that although it hasn't happened, is that Rapid Transit 3 is planned to eventually extend this far. So that was probably that was a bit of a positive look at. I don't know about the huge balconies that overlook the railway tracks. Maybe if you're a train spotting fan, but these days our trains are just full of oil and potash and wheat.
Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
And Ms. Knight?
Under vacancy, you don't have anything there. Are you saying it's zero vacant?
No, what we generally do on these multifamilies is take the statements which have the vacancy already calculated. Unlike commercial properties, most of the statements don't reflect a vacancy amount. And I'm just trying to take a look and see how they stated it here. Oh, okay. So if on the assessor's page 14, you get an indication of how they express vacancy. So the base rent would potential revenues 3,190,000. The vacancy on that is 160,000 and 5.43%. And then I was speaking about discounts, fact of life these days. The 1 month every year discount is reflected there.
Okay, thank you.
Got all your questions, Ms. Knight?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And my questions have been asked and answered. So this property has taken us 1 hour to go through. So, Mr. Neufeld?
Yeah, it's very much anticipated that a lot of the stuff won't be repeated.
All right, thank you. Do either party have a wish for a summation on this?
No, thank you.
No, we'll pass on that. If maybe towards the end, if we come up, these are always going to be very similar issues, so we'll might recap the issues at the end.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we're just going to take a very brief 5-minute recess.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Could we do a 10-minute recess with everything? Just sorry.
Oh, sure. We're going to take 10 minutes, actually. Thank you. I would like to call this meeting back to order. And we will move on to item number 2, which is 815 Sterling Lion Parkway. And Mr. Wong, whenever you are ready.
Okay, the subject property is 815 Sterling Line Parkway. The file number is 24-3849. The roll number is 100-067-75965. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is 13,333,000. This is a residential apartment that's 4 stories high. It was built in 2018 and has 60 suites with 42 indoor parking stalls and 48 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. I guess most of the properties today will be in a similar area close to IKEA. On page 4 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,575 to get a potential income of $1,134,000. We used a 3.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,095,000, and we used a 44% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $613,000. Capped at 4.6%, we have an estimated market value of $13,333,000, which is about $222,000 a unit and $198 a square foot. On page 5 are some rent comparables showing the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 6 is our income and expense summary. This is a summary of the income statements. This one, the statement included 815 Sterling Line and 825 Sterling Line. So using to separate them as best we can based off of the units, 815 accounts for 46.87% of the units. And so applying 46.87%, the NOI for 815 Sterling line is 607,000. The model's NOI is at 613,000. So I feel that the actual NOI is in line with the model NOI. On page 7 are some comparable sales. They range from 260 to 281,000 a unit, and $266 to $321 a square foot. So this supports the assessed value, which is 222,000 a unit and $198 a square foot. On page 8 and 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates with some cap rate sales that range from 3.46 to 5.74%. The remaining pages are is the income statement supplied by the owner. So to conclude, the model NOI is in line with their actual NOI. The model cap rate is supported by market sales, and the assessed value at 222,000 a unit and $198 a square foot is supported by comparable sales, which are a bit higher than that. So having said that, I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $13,333,000.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, any questions?
Muted.
Oh, that's good. Question on page, get the right page here, 5. When the calculations are done for average monthly rent per unit, is this based on the potential or the actual less discounts?
It should be less discounts.
Okay, so I was just trying to do, so we have 1575 times 12 times 60, 1,134,000, and but your statement page page 11. Sorry, I didn't turn this stupid thing off. You said this was for 2 units, 2 buildings? Or was this supposed to be the breakdown for 1?
It's for yeah, it looks like it's for 815 and 825.
Okay, okay. And okay, so that's why I couldn't make the calculation. And now for the other units that you're listing here, were these based on potential or potential less the discount?
Sorry, which units?
The page on page 5, the comparables, numbers 1 to 4.
Yeah.
Were these from statements that you got that indicated discount, or did you get them from asking rates?
We got them from, like, we get income and expense information from all the property owners, and so these are the ones that we inputted in our systems. Okay.
All right. No, it's nothing much turns on it, I think, but I was just curious. But so how did you get the breakdown for 815 that you indicate on page 6 from the statements that are included? I'm just looking to see, is there a breakdown here somewhere in the statements?
I think on page 7 it says their net operating income. 17, sorry.
17. Okay, right, so the net operating income, 1295, 200 for the 2 units. I'm just asking if you had a breakdown between the 2 units that are on the statement.
I don't believe so.
Okay, I mean, for some reason we had it, and your number is fairly similar for what you've indicated on your page 6, but it's not in the source material though, or in the evidence presented today, is it?
Is what included? I don't
Well,
know.
you are saying the NOI, the breakout for 815 Sterling Line is 607,060.
Yeah.
Is that number in the statement anywhere below? I couldn't
No,
find it.
no, it's not. It's
Okay.
like, because it appears that they're together, to try to separate 815 and 825. You can see the percentages.
Oh, okay. So it was someone had done how was that done, on like unit count or?
Yeah, it's in top of page 6.
Okay. All right. Oh, okay. Right. So you took 60 units, 68 units, split the income up on a percentage. Is the composition of units the same in both 815 and 825, the percentage ratio?
Um, I'm not sure. They could potentially be slightly different.
Okay.
Ideally, we might want to use their income, but unfortunately, I don't have that information.
No, I just that's fine. And so the workup though is all done by the model, number on page 4, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And I can assume the other questions I've asked are deemed to be answered from the previous one. So no further questions.
Ms. Knight
No questions, thank you.
and Mr. Seelan.
No questions, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Mr. Wong, I'm just gonna ask you one overall question for for all of the properties this morning. You have not inspected any of them yourself, correct?
I believe I've inspected the subject property when we added it to the roll.
Okay, thank you.
But but typically speaking, yeah, probably haven't inspected a lot of the properties.
All right, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, if you would like to proceed, please.
Sorry, I just noticed one thing. Do you have an aerial view here anywhere of the subject property? Is your only picture on page, top of page 3?
I do not have an aerial view.
Okay. Is this joined to the other property in question, 825 Sterling Line? Physically?
Potentially with I'm not sure.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify that because I was just, you had no overheads here. Okay, the answer is no. Thank you. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we did have a breakdown of these. We asked for it and got it, and our numbers are very, very similar to what the assessor had in that 2022 was, we had 606, 122. The building is at this point 8 years old, so there is a bit more of expense history, and so we did typically was we looked at the last year of income and an average of 3 years of expenses, the breakdown. That's the reason our number came in a bit lower than what the assessor indicated at 607. We do show 606 for 2 years and then one bad year in expenses, which it was 564,000. And based on that, this is the appropriate way for stabilization when you have a history in the building. I think this is one of the first ones up in this complex of properties, which most of which you'll hear today. So with the actual NOI 594,760, and similar to what we stated before, 5.5% is the lowest cap rate that Colliers had identified for transactions in and around April 1st, 2023. And we've given you some market evidence of these, and our report, while we were giving me 10 minutes, I went over and talked to the person who compiled the numbers for the report. We do have a lot more data on properties similar to this, similar dimensions and ages. They're not allowed to be presented to the public in hearings, but they do make up our cap rate study. Actual sales, the 5.5% is a very appropriate number considering the required need for adjustments on preferential financing and the school tax credit. That's my presentation.
Long questions?
No questions.
Mr. Seelan?
Have you inspected this property?
I don't remember. I've been in most of these and I've been through them, and I imagine I have been, but I can't remember, so I can't offer any insight.
No problems. Thank you. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight?
Just again, the expenses, the vacancy.
Well, the joint vacancy on the two properties is 5.11%, and that's on our page 4. In addition, the rental discounts equal another 9.6%.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just noticed on your brief, Mr. Neufeld, you've got a building age of 2016, and on the cities, it's 2018.
Okay. Well, it's not like us to think of come up with any different number unless we have a source. I just want to check. This might have been the age when these were built in phases. This might have been a project age.
Okay. So you're going with the city's 2018 then?
I don't think it makes any difference. My major concern with age was, has there been enough history in the statements to give us something reliable to deal with on the issues of expenses and stabilization. So I don't think anything turns on it.
All right. I thank you. That's all my questions. Do either of you have a wish for a summation?
No, thank you.
No.
All right, I thank you both. We will move on to 795, item 3, 795 Sterling Lion. And Mr. Wong, whenever you're ready.
The subject property is 795 Sterling Lion Parkway. The file number is 24-3848. The roll number is 100-067-75950. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is $14,769,000. This is a residential apartment that's 4 stories high. It was built in 2016, and it has 68 suites with 52 indoor parking stalls and 62 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 are some listing some of the amenities. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,510 to get a potential income of $1,232,000. And we use the 3.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,190,000. And we used a 41% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $701,000. Capped at 4.75%, we have an estimated market value of $14,769,000, which is about $217,000 per unit, or $209 a square foot. On page 6 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 7 is a summary of the income and expenses. 785 sterling line and 795 sterling line were on one income statement. So to separate them, I did it by the number of units. And so the total NOI for 785 and 795 is 1,269,000. 795 sterling line, the subject properties portion would be 674,000. So the model NOI is at 701,000, and I feel it's in line with their actual NOI, which is 671,000, considering the higher than market vacancy. Page 8 are some comparable sales that range from 265 to 281,000 a unit, and $266 a square foot to $321 a square foot. These sales support the value, the assessed value at 217,000 a unit and $209 a square foot. On page 9 is information on how we'd developed our cap rates. And on page 10 are some cap rate sales. Once again, 2390 McPhillips sold 3 years prior to the reference date at 215,000 a unit. So I feel that supports the assessed value for the subject property. And it also supports the cap rate that the model has applied at 4.75%. So to conclude, the model NOI is in line with the actual NOI when you consider the higher than market vacancy that they've incurred there. The model cap rate is supported by market sales, and the assessed value at 217,000 a unit is supported by comparable sales that range from 215,000 a unit to 281,000 a unit. Having said that, I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $14,769,000.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, again, this building, the statements are combined with 785 sterling line. What's the file number on that? Are we hearing that today? 785?
I believe we're hearing it next.
Okay, what's the file number?
The next property.
3847.
Okay, I have a question on the way you've split the information, and I thought I would want to see if it's something we are concerned about on the way it's done.
Well, actually, for the previous property, you were saying that you guys had this separate, but you actually split it up exactly the same way I did.
Okay, well,
for the previous property.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't jump to any conclusions on that.
Well, no, you can. You look on your page 2. It says that's how you did it.
Okay, no, that's fine. We're talking about this property, and there's a different issue altogether on this property. And I just wanted to see how you treated it, to see if there's a fairness and equity that we should be concerned with. And I see now that there is something we should address. So 795 Sterling Line, you have a picture of it. The only picture then is on top of page 3.
795 or 780?
Or,
Oh,
or
sorry.
the,
It's
the,
okay.
the-
Yeah, yeah,
the
it's
one-
okay. I'm sorry.
The,
I'm
the
sorry.
open file.
Yeah.
Is this your only picture?
Yes,
And can you confirm that this is actually joined to 785?
I believe it is.
Okay. And are you aware that the primary entrance is in the 785 building?
I am not aware.
Okay, so when you're splitting income, wouldn't it skew higher to 795 as a result because there's more common area in 785?
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, well, you've listed some amenities on page 4. Are these located in, do you know which building the amenities are located in?
I believe they're located in a joined area.
Okay, do you know which building that joined area might be in?
I do not.
Well, there's a social room, a fitness facility, a rooftop deck. You don't know which building they're in then.
I do not know.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Page 5 is done by the model. Is
I
that
believe so,
correct?
yes.
And I'm just wondering here, the building has been up since 2016. Is that what your statement is on page 1?
Yes,
Um, and I'm not, this is obviously your choice, but I normally see you do a 3-year average on income and expenses. You just showed the last year of 2022, correct? Here?
yes.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Ms. Knight
No, ma'am.
and Mr. Seeland.
Just for clarification, this building is the spot. We have 2 buildings. There was a previous property, 815 Straight Parkway. This isn't attached. This isn't joined. This isn't part of this property.
I don't believe it is.
Okay, that's all. Any questions, Madam Chair?
All right, thank you. I just have one question, Mr. Wong, more out of curiosity, on your page 1, you've got 68 suites listed, but you've got indoor parking for 52 and outdoor parking for 62.
Mhm.
Seems like a lot of parking for 68 suites. And I do see that there's 23 bedrooms, but it just seems like a lot of parking. And it does not seem to be taking into account at all, its sister property at 785 Sterling.
Yeah, I mean, we have slightly different parking counts for indoor and outdoor parking counts for 795 and 785. I believe that we would have determined I guess, an appropriate split between the 2 properties, which appear to be joined together. But as far as I know, it is accurate.
Okay, so there's no sort of double counting here. They both have.
I don't believe so.
All right,
I
okay.
mean, if we're showing that we're double counting, we definitely want to be correct. We want to correct it. So
Okay. Thank you. That's all my questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to proceed with your brief, please.
Yeah, thank you. I think you got the most of it there. This is a joined building, and if you note the picture on page 1, the red dot is on the one we're talking about now, and it's an L-shaped building. So in the portion to the east of the subject, is a darker rooftop. That is part of 785 Sterling Lion. That is the main entranceway, is in the building. And if you look real closely, you can see a brown colored area. That's the rooftop patio. It's in 785. So the building shares amenities. So this one should skew higher on the income side because it has more rentable space in it than 785. And as the net result of that is the way we calculated it is that our NOI on it was 723,000. And again, this is calculated the same way, which was to use the last year of income. This one steadily grew, and the expenses were averaged out with higher expenses in the last year. So I understand this is higher than what the assessment department's model demonstrates, but when we hit 785, you'll see the stabilization point is that we were trying to track as best as we could the actual performance of this. Just point out that per earlier discussion on proximity to the railway track, this one was one of the first ones in on the site, and they had a squared off location. So they are 200 feet from the active railroad. And you can see our first building we discussed today to the west of it being 165 feet from there. 35 feet makes a lot of difference for the railway issue, and the difference is that they managed to put a parking lane in the back as a buffer zone, which is a better idea. We capped this again at 5.5%. That is the lowest number that our we don't do models, our actuals have indicated in the reference here. Nothing sold below there when properly stabilized, and this results in a smaller change in our requested value, and a slight increase from the previous assessment, because this one we did go over 2 years ago, and the number we thought was a pretty good fair number, and the slight increase in performance indicates a slight increase in assessed value with obviously cap rates are worse now than they were 2 years ago. Not much else to say about it. And on our page 2, the bottom of it, that shows the back view. So where the building says 785 and 795, the spot, that's in the 785 building. So you can see that the entranceway is a high ceilinged entranceway, which takes out 2 floors of potential rental units. And then there's a stairwell in that part that adjoins 785, a non-producing space. So this one is the better performing of the joined properties. And there's common ownership on all of these, but they are separately titled. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering how, like, you separated the income and expenses, or what income and expenses you based your evaluation off of?
I'm just looking to see if this has any notes listed in it. It would be in discussion with the property manager for the allocations.
Okay, so there's nothing necessarily for us to review in your evidence?
No, I think it's just very clear and makes sense that the allocation is leans towards more income coming out of 795 per floor area, and it was I can't find the notes on it, but it would be discussion with the property manager and the property owner on the performance side of it. It would be in our backup notes in our system somewhere. We might have it here. We didn't provide it though.
Okay. Okay, that's all my questions.
Mr. Seelan,
No questions, Madam Chair.
thank you. Ms. Knight,
No, no, ma'am.
did you inspect this property? I think you.
Same question as before. I've been all through this. I can't remember anything though. They all blended into one. They all look the same to me. I guess we're income focused. I don't think there's any condition issues other than what we pointed out, the proximity to the railway tracks. In regard to the parking, because there's a common ownership, you'll find that the parking ratios on some of these are lower than others. And I think the first one we heard had a very low parking allocation, but because it's a common project, you can get indoor parking in one building versus another, and it makes it a little bit harder on income splitting, because you could have a renting something in 815 and paying rent there for parking that you got in 795. So that's why it's very fortunate that all of these properties are being heard at the same time, because I'm anticipating that there should be a commonness to a potential decision on these, and so there's no inequity. We can't break it down.
Okay, just a quick question in regards to your vacancy.
Yes.
City has it at 9.93, I believe.
Well, we did have the same statements as them, so I'm just looking at one here. 9.4 on vacancy and 9.75 on the discount factor. Yes.
Thank you. That's all my questions. Does either party have a wish for a summation of this property?
No, thank you.
No, sorry.
You felt you're good?
No,
Right.
no, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item number 4, which is 785 Sterling Lion Parkway. Mr. Wong, whenever you're ready.
The subject property is 785 Sterling Lion Parkway. The file number is 24-3847. The roll number is 100-067-75945. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is $13,550,000. This is a residential apartment. It's built in it's 4 stories high. It's built in 2016, and it has 60 suites with 47 indoor parking stalls and 42 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 are lists some of the amenities. On page 5 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,518 to get a potential income of $1,093,000. We use a 3.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,056,000. And we use a 40% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $623,000. Capped at 4.6%, we have an estimated market value of $13,550,000, which is about $225,000 per unit and $178 a square foot. On page 6 are some rent comparables that show that the rent that we've applied is in line with what's in the market. On page 7 is a breakout of the net operating income for the subject property. We broke it out at $595,000. So the model's NOI at $623,000 is in line with the actual NOI at $595,000, considering the higher than market vacancy. On page 8 are some rent comparables. They range from 265,000 a unit, 281,000 a unit, and $266 a square foot to $321 a square foot. These comparable sales support the assessed value at 225,000 a unit and $178 a square foot. On page 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates, and on page 10 are some cap rate sales. Once again, 2390 McPhillips at 215,000 a unit supports the assessed value, and the 4.71 cap is supportive of the model's 4.6 cap. The remainder of my brief is the income statement supplied by the owner. So in conclusion, the model NOI is in line with the actual NOI when you consider the higher vacancy. The model cap rate is supported by market sales, and the assessed value at 225,000 a unit is supported by comparable sales. Having said that, I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $13,550,000.
Thank you, Mr. Wong. And questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, page 3, the picture, just confirm that's the inner courtyard and not the sole land solely on the roll for the subject property.
I believe so, yes.
So that's a shared one, and we've heard 4 units in this complex being heard. They all share this courtyard, correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And the breakup that you had done, I haven't answered your question, but I'll phrase it so that it's my question. On your page 7, you did by a percentage of units. Now, when you get the mailers, didn't you also get a rent roll?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you might know better than me, but I don't believe so.
Oh, I'm looking at a copy of a mailer, and I see the rent roll was attached. And I know you won't provide it to the board because it contains personal information. But I'm wondering if you consulted the rent roll to determine the income allocation for the 2 properties in discussion today. Hey, but you haven't seen it, though.
No, I think that's one way you could do it. That's probably a slightly more accurate way to do it, but I didn't do it in this case because I'm not really too sure if I would have been able to determine which units were allocated to which building. I mean, maybe I could have, but
Yeah, no,
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Okay, that's fine. I wanted the point clarified for the board to see where they can this information that it was out there somewhere. That's all. Then and you had mentioned that the difference between what your workup was on your page 7 versus the model was a different vacancy rate. And isn't vacancy something that's a market driven?
Typically, but when you're trying to value something, when you're trying to value an apartment building, you wouldn't value it at higher than market vacancy typically.
Well, hasn't this whole complex demonstrated a higher vacancy than what you call market?
It appears to be higher than what the model is, but the thing is, our market vacancies are based off of income and expense information. So I believe that it's a very good representation of market vacancy.
Well,
I'm just saying that if this property experienced it was a more market vacancy, the net operating income would likely be more pretty much spot on what the model is, what would likely be.
Well, does your model segregate vacancy by neighborhood?
I do see different vacancy rates. I'm not sure if it's determined by location or by building attributes, but I do see different market vacancy for different properties.
Okay. Do you know roughly how many units are in this Sterling Line complex? The ones we've heard today, probably close to 400 units.
I'm not sure. I'd have to take a look at them.
Plus there's some across the street. Isn't this a large enough market sector to consider having its own vacancy rate?
I'd say probably not. I probably like you probably want to have more than, I don't know, a handful of like maybe 5 apartment buildings to determine a market vacancy. I'm not sure. That's my opinion.
Okay. Those are my questions. Thanks.
Priscilla.
Yes, have you inspected this property? Excuse me, sorry. Have you inspected this property?
As with Mr. Neufeld, I believe I have inspected this property. I'm 99% sure I've inspected this property, but I'm not 100% sure.
What would you say the condition is of this property?
It was built in 2016. It's new.
Okay, that's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight, questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. And I also have no questions. Mr. Neufeld, if you would like to proceed.
Thank you. So the answer to the earlier question was we had the rent rolls, and that's how we did our splitting. I had an opportunity to go into our system and read the notes, and as a result, this property comes out significantly lower than the assessor's estimate, whereas the other one came in higher. It's like I say, please judge them on that basis. One is carrying a common area, and the other has more rentable area. Our workup on it indicated an NOI of 535,000, and that's based on in this case we stabilized at an average income because it went up and down. That's just one of the things we look for. If we see growth, then we'll target the last year steady growth. If we see up and down, we have to average it out because it indicates a problem with this particular unit for vacancy on it. And it's very site specific. And then the expenses are generally always averaged out. In this case, a review of the expenses indicated that there's been nothing remotely resembling capital. The expenses are general operating expenses. In predicting the questioning, it's in good condition, but it does cost money to keep these buildings in good condition, and the money is spent, and that hits the NOI. So our NOI is 535,000, and the same issue with the cap rate at 5.5%, which is the lowest cap rate demonstrated by actual sales that have been properly vetted by real estate professionals. Nothing else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Wong, questions?
Yes. I mean, your requested value is working out to about 162,000 a unit. Your main indication of market value is 474 Henderson, and that's like 281,000 a unit. There seems to be a pretty big spread. Do you know of any apartments that might have sold for 162,000 a unit, your requested value today?
It is completely improper to compare the unit sizes as a determinant of value when income is the predominant indicator. No professional would bother with value per units when provided with the income and assuming the income is reliable. It doesn't even enter our discussion. Now, the only time, sorry, it does enter the discussion if you're dealing with a renovation project. These are not renovation projects. So the income isn't there. And the reason the income isn't there is because there's more common area in this building. If you look at it a different way, you'd be presenting an unreliable indication.
Okay, so was that yes or no?
I forgot what was the primary question? Did I look at the sales? No, I did not.
No, do you know of any properties that have new buildings that have sold for 162,000 a unit?
Oh, no, we don't track that sort of number on a rate per unit. The ones we do track are renovation projects, because that is a motivator. It's like, I can buy it for 40,000 a door and I'll put 100,000 into it, and then 140 I'm into it per door. What's the gross value? How much money can I make? Capitalize that out. Okay, projects a go or a no go. That's the only time you ever see that used in valuation.
Okay, so basically you haven't seen any, which is okay. That's
No,
fine.
no, I haven't looked, which is
Okay.
different. I haven't seen any.
That's an acceptable answer as well. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, any questions to?
Yeah, so you said 780 or 795 and 785 are sort of combined, but not really. But yet,
Well, they're combined. They're not legally combined, but they're physically
right.
combined.
But 785, or 795, when we look at the income from last year to this year, or from 2023 to 2025, your income actually went up in that case. In this case, it's going way down.
Yeah.
So 2023 was 12,087, and now you're going down to 970, 9,729.
Well, and that's what I noted here. I don't know about the numbers I'm looking at. It was 1098, dropped to 1085, and then increased to 1152 on the net income side. So
Mhm.
it's an anomaly. I would tend to agree that is a bit off, but it's probably something as simple as people come and look at it and they want to pick a unit. They want one in 785 or 795, and they pick one over the other as a preference. Both are indicating high vacancies, so they have choice, and the choice is made. That's off the top of my head. I think that's the answer.
Okay, and it's not under review going further. Last year's, if nothing like that has happened. You accepted the 12,087 last year?
No, yes, all of these numbers have been finalized,
Okay.
and when we looked at them last year, again, we had the same thing as today, and they were all heard together, and we just added the two together and said, is this fine? Yes, it's fine. It's going in the same statement. One thing to point out on the buildings, I was trying to answer this. If you look, there's an aerial photograph here, and with a bit more clarity, I'm looking at a better one, and you can see then in each of the wings. At the end of the wing, there's a strip that runs across the building, and that's the stairwell. And then you'll note that that 795 only has one stairwell in the building, whereas 785 has two. One is at the south end, and the other is in the common area on the north end. And it's obscured a bit by the red dot. That's why I'm looking at it on a better picture. But that's because that's also where the rooftop patio is. So two stairwells in 785, one stairwell in 795. I don't think that they would ever be split without a cross easement agreement to the stairwells, right? Because fire standards, you couldn't do it. So they're going to be sold together. They'd have to be sold together.
All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Neufeld, just in regards to vacancy again?
It's the same statement. It's a joint vacancy at 9.4%.
All right. I thank you. Does either party have a wish for a summation?
No, thank you.
Yeah, this is just this issue of the jointness, which is just the dealing with this property. And again, look at the picture on page 1, and the second building we heard at I don't know, the one on Sterling Line Parkway, you can see the two buildings are not joined, but they each have two sets of stairwells. The subject shares one, and so there's a total of three. So whatever you decide, I think you can blend these two together and divide it any way you like. I see one economic unit that would be illegal to separate, in my opinion. And now that I'm thinking about it, and I guess they split it on title, but I don't think would be permissible to split it unless you kept the shared walkways open to the fire escape. Interesting. This one's just worth less because there's more common area. Sorry, that was it.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 5. 765 Sterling Line Parkway. Mr. Wong, whenever you're ready.
The subject property is 765 Sterling Line Parkway. The file number is 24-4136. The roll number is 100-067-75935. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is $32,095,000. This is a residential apartment that's 6 stories high. It was built in 2019, and it has 99 suites with 75 indoor parking stalls and 50 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 is some information on the subject property. So based off of the description, in terms of it appears to be an apartment that's a little bit on the higher end of the spectrum in terms of quality. So on page 6 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $2,026 to get a potential income of $2,407,000. Use a 3.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $2,325,000. And use a 36% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $1,476,000. Capped at 4.6%, we have an estimated market value of $32,095,000, to $324,000 a unit and $236,000 a square foot. On page 7 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 8 are some comparable sales. The units that in the comparable sales are a little bit less, but the subject property is superior to those comparables. And when you look at the sale price per square foot at $237, it's supported by those sales on page 8, which range from $266 to $321 a square foot. On page 9 is information on how we derived our cap rates. And on page 10 are some cap rate sales. You go to page 18. Their indicated net operating income is about $1,605,000. This more than supports the model's net operating income at $1,476,000, which is about so their actual income is about $129,000 higher than what the model is estimated. So to conclude, the model's net operating income of 1,476,000 is supported by the actual NOI at about 1,605,000, which is about 129,000 higher. The model cap rate is supported by cap rate sales and the overall value per unit at 324,000, and the rate per square foot is also supported by the market. So this property deserves to be at the higher end of the spectrum in terms of the value, and I ask that you maintain the assessed value at 32,095,000.
Thank you. Questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, on your page 8, you make the statement that these sales support a value of 324,000 per unit. How is that possible when none of them exceeded 281,000?
Well, 474 Henderson at 281,000 a unit.
I'm asking about
is,
your evidence, not my evidence. How
Well,
do
that's-
how do these sales support mathematically to range from 265 to 281? And he said it supports 324. How does that work?
Yeah, and comp number 3 is 474 Henderson.
Okay, 281.
Yeah.
How does
and
281 support 324?
Yeah, that's a very standard apartment building. This property is far superior to comp number 3, and it is superior to the other properties as well. So I feel that if say 474 Henderson sold at 281,000 a unit, then this particular property, which to quote the advertisement, is a high-end building to fit one's well-earned lifestyle. I feel that it is warranted, and it is in line with the 281,000, which is a more standard apartment building. And like I said, when you look at the rate per square foot, which is the assessment at $237 a square foot, it is supported by those sales.
Did you bring the board any evidence that a value of 324,191 per unit exists?
In terms of a
Point me
exact
to
direct comparable,
Point me to
I did not.
Okay, that's all I was asking.
Yeah.
And did you review the statements at all? You mentioned them. Did you review them on a line item basis?
Maybe I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm just wondering if you know what the property tax load is on this property.
No, is that a line item?
It's in your evidence, but you didn't review it, so you didn't review it. That's fine. I just wanted to know that. On page your valuation, I take it then it was all done by the model then, and that's on page 6.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I don't think I had any other new questions for you. I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, questions?
No, ma'am.
And Mr. Sigmund?
Yes, have you inspected this location?
I have not.
No. Okay. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
I just have one question in regards to your page 7 of your rent comparables.
Yeah.
Would you say these are, I'm going to use the word suitable rent comparables to this property? I mean, the
I
description,
would say they are.
okay, so you're saying that your comps 1 through 4 are at the same standard that this property is at? And I'm asking this because in the description of this property on page, your page 4, they're using the word bespoke.
Yes.
I have never seen that word used in regards to an apartment building.
That's
Or
kind of
apart.
why that's kind of why I think that like it is at the top end of the range in terms of I guess apartment units.
So then that begs my question on page 7 of your rent comps.
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest your comps don't, in terms of, I'm going by their location.
Well, 85 Paget is like you could probably hit 2 drives and kind of get there. Not 2 drives, but it's not that far away from Sterling Line. It's near the Golf Dome in that area, or on Sterling Line. Paget is just off Sterling Line.
Right, no, I know where it is, but I'm just gonna suggest, I think it's a different, well, anyway, I'm not gonna give evidence, but I'm gonna suggest it's different. It's in a different area. It's on the other side of Keniston. All right, thank you, Mr. Wong, that's all my questions.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to proceed with your brief, please.
Yes, thank you. And Madam Chairman person, you kind of touched on a pet peeve of mine with bespoke. I hate that word. It's supposed to be about a suit that a tailor makes for you. One pair of scissors or a haircut. But now it's for a 99 unit apartment building. I've seen it being used for car ads. But it's well, that's we'll have to take it with a grain of salt. So the building, you'll note that the calculations on revenue do not match to the statement, and I think that the statement indicates that in our evidence too that for this period 1,605,000. Now the major difference is the property tax issue, and I think that the adjustment done on here isn't quite accurate. So the actual tax assessment is actually $85,000 higher, and this is one of these playing catch up with the supplementals issue, so it's not in on the statements. So I think my view of it right now is that the NOI is higher than expressed here, but not that much. I have it at 1,518,000. That's my own workup now, and I think that should be applied so that it should be higher than stated. And our value, again, nothing is sold for more than 5.5. It's a change in value to 27,600,000. I rounded all the numbers in advance, but because I am making a change here. So NOI 1,518,000, and income, or sorry, value 27,600,000. Again, I've been through this, but I don't recall. This is an affiliated ownership group with the other part of the property. Just a bit of background is that this whole triangle was sold to one party who ended up subdividing it into a bunch of different units. The spots are all the same people, and then these 2 buildings on the east side are related to them, although they are managed by a different group, and therefore the statements are a bit different. You can see that they're written a bit differently. but they're still, they started off this project together. So that's about all I had new to answer. Oh, you'll note that the vacancy rate is a fair bit lower on this, and I'm going to assume it's a location driven issue, being closer to the retail development. There is a sort of I wouldn't call it assisted living, but a seniors living complex immediately to the east of this, and then there's the mall. It's performed better, and other than that, I really have nothing new to add that we haven't gone over before.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Wong, questions?
Yeah, I guess maybe just one. Once again, yeah, your requested value is 278,000 a unit, and I guess you're suggesting that this value, this bespoke property, is valued the same as the property on 474 Henderson.
I did not make that comparison, but I thank you for adding that bit of humor on it. I don't know. Again, we just don't look at it on a per unit basis. It's all about the money they produce, and it'll be the only issue that an investor really cares about is the length and strength of the revenue stream.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Knight, questions?
So your expense ratio includes your vacancy, so you're reducing your expense ratio to get that number? Or are you increasing the rental value to get that number?
I think I'm doing a bit of both. I don't understand how the calculation was made on page 1. And again, it does not agree with the evidence that on the statements, which is similar to both assessor and appellant. To me, it looks like I would probably put the income at
Because the appellant's expense ratio is 39.92 and yours is 36.74.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm contradicting myself here. The revenue is as stated, 2,373,000 after vacancy and discounts. It's just I couldn't figure out this expense ratio that was applied for it, and I know from experience we've been dealing with trying to catch up on the supplemental notices on these statements. But let's see, 871, 2373. What? Well, that's interesting. Okay, so there's an error in the statement. How could you have 2373 minus 871, we'll call it 872, I'm rounding here, 1501. I don't know if anyone else is picking this up, but when I look at the statements, I was being too critical too soon. Our page 1 is the line item, unless there was something in the line item that doesn't add up properly.
It appears that it's missing the miscellaneous residential income. That's on page 3, your page 3.
Page 3, let me just see that. The miscellaneous income.
Yeah, and if you look on page 4, the total residential income is 2,477,000.
Well, if you look at line item 41999, it's 2373, right?
Yes, yes, but then there's other income as well below that.
Okay. So what line item is that other income? Do you have it?
Yeah, it's 42080.
42080. Oh, residential miscellaneous income.
So on page 4 is the total income for
Yeah,
the property.
yeah, I get you. I get you. Yeah. Okay. Well, what I changed then is I added the 104,414 back in then, but then I made another adjustment of 87,000 for an old tax bill, which pertains to line item um, 60999, and then I came up with 1518. I see what you're saying, though. I don't know what the residential income is, so I'm not going to exclude it because it could be, as long as it's not interest, right? Or that's a good question. What is it? 104 residential miscellaneous income. Because okay, I'm wondering about parking to the neighboring property, possibly. I don't know. So I'm very comfortable with the change I made, though, but because it does indicate a higher NOI, and so on that basis,
I just got the total expense change to be 37.3% for
Yeah.
885 or 855 135.
okay, I was going to say it's somewhere around there because the difference is equivalent to about 15% ratio. So that's going to bump the expense ratio higher.
Yeah. Okay.
That
Thank you.
makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Knight. And I have no questions. Does either party have a yeah, oh, sorry, Mr. Seelan? Did I forget you?
Yes.
Apologize. I
Second time.
apologize. Go
Um,
ahead, please.
no problems. What was your vacancy percent?
I think as stated, which was 3.57%.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And as stated, I have no questions. Does either party have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
Mr. Newfeld, you're good?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. Does anybody have a wish for a break at this point? Yes,
Yes.
we'll take a 5-minute break.
Okay.
I would like to call this hearing back to order. And we are going to move on to item 6. And just before we do, Mr. Newfeld, I am going to point out, and I'm sure you saw on your briefs, and I understand somebody else did them, but we are not going to be considering the previous year's assessment.
Oh, and no, I understand. It's just a information only issue.
Right.
No, that's understandable.
So we will move on to item number 6, which is 395 Stan Bailey Drive. And Mr. Wong, the floor is yours whenever you're ready.
Okay, the subject property is 395 Stan Bailey Drive. The file number is 24-4058. The roll number is 030-930-14525. The roll number is, the roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is $18,456,000. This is a residential apartment that's 4 stories high. It was built in 2021, and it has 75 suites with 70 indoor parking stalls and 36 outdoor parking stalls. Page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. South Kenniston near the perimeter. On page 4 are some pictures, interior pictures of the subject property. And on page 5 are some of the listed amenities. On page 6 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $1,587 to get a potential income of $1,428,000. We used a 3.1% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $1,384,000. We used a 38% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $848,000. Capped at 4.6%, we have an estimated market value of $18,456,000, which is about $246,000 a unit and $191 a square foot. On page 7 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's in the market. On page 8 are some comparable sales, which support the assessed value at $246,000 a unit and $191 a square foot. On page 9 and 10 is information on how we derived our cap rates and some cap rate sales. So to conclude, the model rent is supported by market rents, and the model cap rate is supported by market sales. The overall value at $246,000 a unit and $191 a square foot is supported by comparable sales that range from $215,000 a unit to $281,000 a unit, and $266 a square foot to $321 a square foot. So the assessed value is well supported, and I ask that you maintain the assessment at $18,456,000.
Thank you. And questions, Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, in this particular case, this is a fairly new bill, 2021. Did you not have a statement from them?
No, we did not.
Had you asked for one?
It's possible it might have been put on the roll past the after in maybe mid, or like the request for the 2022 mailer would have been in April in 2023, and it might have been added after that, in which case there would have been no mailer.
Oh, okay, right. So you don't have the information yet. So everything was just done on the model then.
Yes.
Okay. The picture on page top of page 5 that shows a central heating and air conditioning system. Do you see the bulkhead?
I do see the bulkhead. I'm not sure what type of heating system it is.
Oh, so that's what I was going to ask. Do you know if it's electric or gas?
No, I do not know.
And so in calculation of when the model does the calculation of the expense ratio, would it not be important to know if you had separately metered electric or centrally metered gas?
I'm not sure if it takes that into consideration or how much it might matter or not.
Okay, well, the question was you don't know
The
whether
answer is
it's
I don't know, I guess.
yeah, okay. And you're editorializing there a bit. Does the site have okay, so you didn't physically inspect the site to determine what it was. That's all I was wondering.
I did not inspect the property.
Okay. I don't think I have any other new questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan, questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight?
Just a question to the applicant. When you're asking about the heat vents the way they are, you think that's a central unit?
Well, what the point is that you can get separately metered hydro. You can't get separately metered gas.
Right. So
Which
it could be
means-
electric. It could be electric heating then.
It could be electric heat, which is yeah, a bit more costly. to run, but it could be gas. And I was just wondering if the assessor had any information on it, and I'm trying to look at the building from the outside to look for meters and ventilation stacks and air intakes. I can't pick up anything.
Because
I
it could be
just-
electric heat and they pay their own electricity.
It very well could be. It would have to be a central package unit, which does the air and the heating out of the same thing, and then it's distributed through the bulkheads.
But it could also run in their own suite.
It could also be run off a gas system, and for that you're going to need to expel the on a high efficiency these days you can do sideways ventilation on it, and I'm actually looking at pictures of the building, and it's too dark to pick that up. I don't know. He doesn't know.
Okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have no questions at this time for Mr. Wong, so Mr. Neufeld, you would like to proceed?
The building is new, and of course we have no information on the operating costs because they wouldn't have any in the reference year, and so we didn't have anything to offer. All I can say is that I'm going to talk about cap rates because that's one thing we can talk about, and it's the same issue as before. There's been nothing sold that is indicated less than 5.5% for any property when properly analyzed would have existed April 1st, 2023. And our position is that I have nothing one way or another on the NOI. I'm questioning it, but I got nothing to offer you. So our requested value is 848,992 divided by 0.055 is a value of 15,436,218. 15436,218 rounded to 15,436,000.
So you're using the city's NOI?
Yes, I really have no choice. We have nothing to offer in comparison.
Right, and I'm sorry, the cap rate then is your
5.5%.
Thank you. Mr. Wong, questions? Mr. Wong, you're on mute.
No questions.
Mr. Seelan, any questions?
No questions, Madam Chair.
And Ms. Knight, questions?
Just one about the cap rate. You're using 5.5, which is the same cap rate you used on all the other buildings that we're talking about today, built in 2016. So 2016 and 2019. So a 2021 wouldn't have a lower cap rate?
I don't think that there's an appreciable enough difference on that. It'd be the same construction style. You could argue that the remaining economic life may differ, and it would be by only a few years. I don't think the markets. Generally, what we see in the market is it's a construction style and type to compare it to, and what do people want to get, and they all seem to be built the same way within a few years. The remaining economic life horizon is roughly the same, which is going to be 35 years plus. Oh, you're asking questions. You're looking for trouble when I answer them, right? Like I'm going to tell you a big long story. I'll simplify it. When the math behind a capitalization rate is based on amortizing the earnings over 35 years, and then putting in a potential hypothetical sale of the assets for the revision value. That's how cap rate's calculated. So the building life on these is 45 to 50 years. So they're all have 35 years of remaining income in them. So on the math side, the caps would be the same with at least 35 years of earnings to consider.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. And I have no questions. Does either party have a wish for a summation on this property?
No, thank you.
No, I think we both are blessed with the total lack of evidence. Thank you.
Yes.
Some less than others.
Turn yourself in there like that. Don't be so hard on yourself.
On to item number 7, which is 15 Berwick Court. And we do have a recommendation on this property. Mr. Wong, would you like to proceed with that recommendation?
Yes, the subject property is 15 Berwick Court. The file number is 24-3915. The roll number is 120-978-03170. I recommend that revised value, the value be revised to 44,276,000.
And Mr. Neufeld, are you accepting this value? You're muted.
My document's not opening. 1 second. Oh, here we go. I think we're inclined to, but I have a few questions to ask,
All right, then I'll
and very limited questions. So
that's
we'll.
fine. That's fine, thank you. Mr. Wong, if you want to proceed with the entire brief then, please.
Yeah. The roll year is 2025, and the assessed value is 50,240,000. This is a residential apartment. It's 6 stories high. It's built in 2021, and it has 156 suites with 91 indoor and 80 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is a picture of the subject property with its location. On page 4 and 5 are some interior photos and amenities listed. On page 6 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $1,825 to get a potential income of $3,417,000. We use a 3.2% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $3,308,000. And we use a 36% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $2,103,000. Capped at 4.75%, we have an estimated market value of $44,276,000, which is about $283,000 a unit and $209 a square foot. On page 7 is our rent comparables, showing that the rents that we've applied are in line with what's in the market. And on page 8 are some comparable sales, which support the assessed value at $283,000 a unit and $209 a square foot. On page 9 and 10 is information on how we derived our cap rates. And we didn't have any income and expense information because I guess it was added to the roll after the request for information was sent out. So I'm recommending that the value be revised to $44,276,000 based off of my page 6, which is on page 1 it says refer to page 3, but it should say refer to page 6.
All right, thank you. Mr. Neufeld, questions?
Yes, on page, I think it's page 2, you state that the request went out and received a response. You didn't put the response in the brief. What did it say?
I don't know.
Okay,
I don't know. It's not in my brief. I'm not sure. I actually don't know why I didn't put it. If we had it, I'm not sure why we didn't put it in.
yeah, okay.
I mean,
Uh,
if you had the information, you can provide it. You can show us in your evidence, I guess.
No. Question you, not me. So, uh, could it have been a return that said we don't have anything to declare because we're still um, uh, in the process of opening up or something like that? I just was just curious.
Yeah.
You-
That's possible, but I can't tell you
oh,
with any certainty.
well, so on page 6, you have a workup then. I take it this was not the model's workup?
Uh, I revised some the attributes to the property because I felt like the original value of $50 million was not representative of a fair market value, and so I made some changes to the attributes of the property and reran the model for the revised value.
Okay. Um, and what was there anything in specific that it would changed, or was that a lot of different changes?
Um, just a few attributes.
But numerically, did it change the rent, the vacancy, expense ratio?
I think it changed everything.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
not everything, but it probably changed the rent and the expenses.
Yeah. So of a variety of different changes, not one specific view on the
Yeah.
attributes. So what would be the attribute change that you would have done then?
Uh, it's an internal system.
Right. But you prepared it here, so you presented it. So what attribute did you change?
I prefer not to get into the internals of our system. I made some changes to the attributes to the model for the subject property. I reran the model and for what you see on page 6.
Okay, I don't think that you should be hiding behind your preference not to disclose. This is an assessment. You told the owner it was worth $50 million, and now you're telling him it's 44 million. I think he's owed an explanation of what the change was.
Well, Mr. Neufeld, if Mr. Wong is not going to disclose, then he's not, so.
Okay, all right, very well. Did it have anything to do with the post-reference sale?
I don't know.
Were you aware of
Was there?
the
I didn't know
post-reference
there was
sale?
I'm not aware. I don't believe I'm aware of any sale. Was there a sale?
I asked you, was it because of it? You don't weren't aware. That's the answer. Okay. Those are the questions I was curious about. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Seelan?
No questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Ms. Knight?
No questions, thank you.
Just have a couple, Mr. Wong. So the cap rate on this is 4.75. And your other properties have been at 4.6. And this is a newer, I think this is the newest property, correct?
One of the newer ones.
So did you change the cap rate?
I did not change the cap rate.
So the model came out with this cap rate?
I believe so. Is there something that is you're unsure of?
Well, I'm just wondering why it's 4.75 and all your other properties for 4.60, that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some small differences to the building attributes that might contribute to that. And my thinking is that because this property has a higher number of units, that the cap rate might be a little bit higher, might be the case. But when you look at it from an overall standpoint, the 4.6 and 4.75 are, I would say, they're fairly similar cap rates, and the resulting value I think is a reasonable estimate. So, but I don't know if I would be able to explain all the small differences, but I believe that the values end up being fairly reasonable.
And my next question is more of a curiosity. So you don't have the income statement from this property, but like you didn't receive it in time, but is it actually, I don't know who captures it in your office. I'm going to assume somebody does, correct?
Yeah,
So I'm just wondering, would you not have had the ability to go and find it and at least speak to it in some way on your brief?
I think typically we would be able to find it, and typically we do have it, and like we do have it majority of the time. With regards to this one, I'm actually not sure why I didn't include it. I would have to look back. I would have to look into this further. But typically for apartments that are new, where we don't have any information, we typically rely on market evidence to try to value the property.
Okay. I'm asking this because I've never come across this before, so. All right.
Yeah, like I said, if the applicant has information for us to look at, I would be open to looking at it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Neufeld?
Thank you. This is a little bit of an unusual situation, and I'm not going to discuss post-reference numbers, but it did sell after the reference date. And all the information we have is post-reference, and it was obtained on non-disclosure agreements. So I've got nothing I can share with you either. The income, the agreed to cap rate, and everything else was, and the actual sale price was something we're not permitted to disclose.
All right. So then I'm just going to ask, did you want to accept this recommendation now?
Well, I believe the cap rate on the model should be higher. And I'm just trying to express this in such a way that doesn't violate our non-disclosure. But I would suggest that if there were any property today that would have a lower cap rate, it would be this property, and as opposed to the others. And I would think 5.5%, given all this, might be a bit too high. I think a 5% rate is fair, based on what the city's provided for income, and that comes out to 42,061,820, 42,061,820, rounded to 42,061,000.
All right, thank you. Mr. Wong, did you have questions for Mr. Neufeld?
I guess you had asked me about information with regards that was submitted to our office and whether I had it or not, and I wasn't sure. Are you aware of any information, the information that was submitted to our office?
No, because that would have been by the previous owner, and I worked for the new owner, and anything I received was from them on a non-disclosure.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Ms. Knight?
No questions, thank you.
And Mr. Seelan?
Just to confirm, the new value that you're seeking is 42,061,000.
That's correct.
Thanks. That's all my questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And just to confirm, Mr. Neufeld, you're looking for a 5% cap rate?
Yes, it's more of a question of fairness than it is a proper cap rate.
Oh,
I don't know how about better to express this.
fine, thank you. Does either party have a wish for a summation on this property?
Is this the final one?
No, thank you.
Final one, yes.
Okay. As I mentioned at the outset, just some, again, I want to reiterate very briefly.
Oh, I'm sorry, I think Mr. Wong is supposed to go first.
Oh, I thought I heard him say nothing.
Oh, did he say, Mr. Wong, did you say you have no wish for a summation?
For the property, no.
And overall, no?
Overall, I would like to say something, yes.
Okay, sorry, Mr. Wong, you proceed, please.
Okay. Yeah. Like a lot of our properties are similar today, and we typically use the income approach for these properties, and I don't disagree with the applicant's income approach, because like with the income approach, you can take different, there are many different ways to do it. You can stabilize the income slightly differently or vastly differently, or you can calculate the cap rates differently. So I can appreciate the approach that the applicant has taken. But what I will say is that when you look at the comparable sales of newer apartments, it would appear that the model's estimates of the net operating income are accurate. And so when you look at comparable sales, they support, I guess, the accuracy of the model's value and the income approach that we've taken. And so I ask that you take that into consideration in your deliberations.
Thank you. Mr. Neufeld, if you'd like to proceed.
Yes, thank you. What we're dealing with, of course, is the income approach, and we have some differences on net operating income and where the actual exists. It is the most accurate indicator of market value. There were a couple of properties today, because these are mostly newer, where the catch-up hadn't occurred with property taxes on the expense side. And we, as working for the ownership, we know that these are coming, and we have to correct the expenses accordingly. And these are real world changes. When people buy and sell properties, they don't say, what are your taxes? They look at what could they be. So I get interviewed all the time when we have a sale on the property tax implications by our department. That's one of my jobs here, is to help them when they do their cap rates to understand the impact of taxes. It has to be taken into account. And you saw me make 2 adjustments on that basis today. Now, but the biggest issue here is, again, it's the cap rate. The April 1st, 2023 Bank of Canada rate was 4.75%. Nobody's borrowing money at 1.75%, the old CMHC number, and being able to sell with the cap rate. And as I said, for years we've had stability in the interest rates, and you haven't seen people make adjustments. Well, that is neglectful to continue that exercise today, because on April 1st, 2021, the Bank of Canada signaled rates are going up, and they went up for the next 2 years, peaking on our reference date at 4.75% in 2023. And what that meant is, if you had a CMHC mortgage tucked in at 1.75%, you got paid extra for your property over and above what market is. That's called creative financing. That is not market value. It has to be adjusted for. Where we know it happens, we're able to make those adjustments. And when Colliers does their cap rate study, we do take it into account. Now you've got the corrected copy. Our range is 5.5 to 6.5 for the best properties. Today, we put 5.5 on all the best properties because that's as low as realistically going to go. The other one was the Manitoba property tax credit, which changed. The last government changed it from going directly to a tenant to going directly to the landlord. Well, as a result, it went to the bottom line. And that's what was happening. Now, I fully expect the next provincial budget will reverse that in March, but we're not, that's post-reference. In the year in question, they had the tax credit, which you have to check your statements to see, did it go, where did it go, how did it adjust to, what was the buyer's motivation, did he know this was coming? And the model didn't do it. The people working for the assessment department didn't do it. We have to do it in private industry because people rely on us for advice for sales and purchases of multifamily. And so the rates that have been spit out, anything under mid-5s is fiction for April 1st, 2023. And that's really the difference between being actively involved in the market and sitting on the side and reading questionnaires and not asking participants the questions. In our business, we would be negligible if we acted that way. And I understand, I'm not holding the assessor and being critical of them. This is the way their system works, but it's not accurate. And that's really the main issue here today. The last property, I have to admit, was based more on an equity issue because we know more about the property that we can't disclose, but we came up with a number I think is fair, and it's not reflective of the rest of the properties we spoke to today. It was a bespoke value. Say that one for the end. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have heard all the items on the docket this morning, and this hearing is adjourned. And I would just like to thank Mr. Wong and Mr. Neufeld for their presentations today.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.